Pleasure to be here. It seems like it's summer in Finland as it's so bright. So I have been now in a position of Technology and Innovation Director in City of Riihimäki for 2 months. A couple of days ago, first dual-use startup landed to Riihimäki. I told to my friends I'm becoming old as it takes 2 months to get the first company up and running. So I have been working for 4 continents developing ecosystems and in more than 40 countries having gigs, and I have never been so excited to be as here back in Finland and in Riihimäki, small town 60 kilometers north from here, but lots of things are happening there. The basic, I would say the basement in Riihimäki is our carry zone. I mean the specific forces of our Finnish defense forces, which are all related to communication, ICT, command, and so forth. So there is units for electronic warfare, logistic command, Army Academic Signal School, Center for Military Medicine as well, Research Agency for Information Technology Division, and also corporations like Seiko and Millog. So that's like the platform on which we are going to build our Finnish dual-use ecosystem. And I'm so glad to be here with Katri and these gentlemen. So as I'm originally from Lapland, and when I'm telling abroad that, okay, I'm from Lapland, city of Santa Claus, Rovaniemi. So then, of course, they are mentioning that, okay, you are Santa Claus. And, well, at least I used to be, but today we have a real Klaus here, Thorsten Klaus, and he is a real Santa Claus from NATO Innovation Fund. So please, Thorsten, tell a little bit about your background and what is NIF
Sure, I've been
doing at the moment. Yeah,
I've been in Silicon Valley for 25 years and just moved back to Amsterdam for the NATO Innovation Fund. We're a $1 billion fund, the first flagship fund investing only in deep tech dual use, the real deep tech, the breakthrough scientific discoveries. We're going to do about 80% of that money goes into direct investing and 20% into fund commitments for other deep tech funds who invest in seed stage, pre-seed stage in the 24 founding nations of this fund. Super excited to be here. I'm a big fan of the Finnish ecosystem. I've been here many times with Tessie and others who is in the LP in our fund. They've been enormously gracious to introduce me to many great funds and startups, and I hope I can meet many of you after the show.
Thank you, Thorsten. So then, Denny from North Carolina, welcome to Finland, first time.
Thank you, Teemu. And I want to just congratulate Jan in this whole ARCTIC15. It's so impressive what you have here and what I've been able to walk around and see, and the people, the interest. I come from North Carolina, where I established the North Carolina Innovation Ecosystem for Defense. And I was very excited to be invited to come here. It's my first time to Finland, but it's amazing what you all are doing here, the technologies and the applications that I see that has for defense and defense in the United States. DefTech, which is the Defense Technology Transition Office in North Carolina, was established to eliminate the stovepipes within our innovation ecosystem and to better connect our innovators with defense and national security needs. So I really look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, Denny. Then Katri, welcome from Tallinn, Estonia, NATO Diana Accelerator. Please share some background information.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super sorry that my name isn't close because I would have loved to be introduced as a Mrs. Santa Claus or something fancy title as well. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Hi, everyone. Super glad to be here for several times already, and I'm super proud that Estonia and Finland can actually build the defense tech ecosystem together. So NATO Diana was launching the first challenges last year. We received over 1,300 applications for the pilot year. We are expecting, indeed, we are expecting to raise the number significantly for this year already. So we're going to launch a new set of challenges at the first week of July. So all the dual-use startups out there, definitely let's talk.
Excellent, exciting. And then Scott from Defense Innovation Unit, which is for a little bit more mature companies, straight from Silicon Valley, please.
Yeah, I work for the US Department of Defense. Our organization is called the Defense Innovation Unit. We accelerate the adoption of commercial technologies into the Department of Defense. So we look for startups and other companies that have commercial technology that is already being deployed out in the marketplace. We try and take advantage of customizing or configuring that technology for Department of Defense use. So when there is a technology need at the Pentagon, they let us know. We do a public solicitation of what we are looking for, and then we run a vendor selection process to choose a vendor to prototype that technology for the Pentagon.
Thank you so much. So first question is first meant for you, Scott, and it's as we are having here mostly Finnish startup companies, although also like investors are coming up abroad. But as a new NATO member, how can Finland's defense dual-use companies gain better access to potential customers, partners, or joint developers internationally? As I think this is exactly what Defense Innovation Unit is doing. So
yes. Yeah, so excuse the shameless infomercial. The one way to do it is to consider DIU. We have a whole series of public solicitations that we do. As a startup or any company around the world, you can sign up for our solicitation feed. You can be watching for solicitations that are right in your area of expertise and respond to them, and be considered by DIU to do a prototype of your commercial technology for the US Defense Department. So we serve as an intermediary between the technology community and the Pentagon. It's a very easy way of getting into the US federal space. And you have an advocate in DIU that is advocating for you with the Pentagon. With the mission partners, we advocate for the vendors. With the vendors, we advocate for the mission partners. But you can be awarded a prototype contract of your commercial technology for the US Department of Defense with an advocate like DIU backing you. So it's a very easy way to get into a very big space that a lot of international vendors would otherwise not consider, especially Finnish vendors. So.
Thank you. Torsten, what do you think from investor point of view, how to gain better access?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are many strategies to success, right? And deep tech is generally underserved right now in terms of capital that gets deployed. And one reason is that there are very few adoption pathways. And I think the efforts that you're spearheading here is exactly what we need. We need adoption pathways into government. And for us, it's actually bigger as a NATO Innovation Fund than just defense. It's really defense, security, resilience. It's really defense, security, resilience. So there is energy security, climate security. In order to provide a safe and secure economic environment for all the billion citizens of NATO, we need to do much more than just defensive actions. We also need to secure the future of our children and our ecosystems. And that has a much broader engagement, like, who are the first troops who actually save people when there is a flood or an earthquake, right? It's military usually units, and they build up communication networks, and there's many more than just the offensive use of military, right? And we are very much aware of that. For startups, that means it's a much broader ecosystem, actually, and almost every single deep tech startup could be dual use. The question usually is, where do I knock? There is not a sign anywhere, like one single one that you say, dual use door, enter here. Yeah. And I think that's our job, actually, to create those adoption pathways For you, of course, mainly in the US with the various organizations there. For us, mainly right now in Europe with the 24 nations that backed our first fund. And that means Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Information. Like there are many, many, many different ways to engage with the government, and that's our job, to build capacity.
And actually, there is such a door, and the door is called Diana. So if you would like to knock on one of the doors, then do knock on the Diana's door.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad that you're actually mentioning that. So Diana is our sister organization that has specific challenges within NATO that they say. And the cool thing about Diana is it's not just limited to venture capital. So I always say in venture capital, we see great technologies, great products, great companies, and sometimes even great deals. And in venture capital, there's a capital in there. We need to only invest in great deals. But there are so many great businesses out there, and Diana is phenomenal in harnessing that innovation and allowing systems integrators, service organizations, 3 people from a university, 100 people from a business section. And so that's how we interact, by the way, Diana and the NATO Innovation Fund, and we're very grateful for the great work that Diana is doing in that space.
Danke schön, Torsten. Denny, anything to add on?
Well, I have a completely different perspective. My colleagues up here are all government. I represent the business that has to do business with these folks. And I'm going to tell you, it's hard. In the United States alone, there's over 70 agencies like DIU that I have to deal with and I represent for companies. I will tell you, if I'm a dual-use technology, especially a small business, focus on the problem. Know what problem you're solving before you contact any of these folks. Because it's not in defense, it's not build it and they will come. It's know how you're going to make their life easier and solve their problem. And that requires homework, understanding the problem, networking, and understanding how your solution is better than your competitors. And I can't tell you how many times a small innovator will come up and have what they think is a great solution, and they have done no competitive analysis. And they don't know who else is offering the same solution and why theirs is better. And most of the time, these 3 folks up here know your competitors. So you really have to do your homework and focus on the problem before going further.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you're mentioning solutions and not technology, because there are many different ways to solve a problem. And when a lot of startups come to us, they push their technology and say, we're the only one who are doing that. It's like, yeah, then you should do flying submarines. It's great. No one is doing that, right? And so you really have to focus on the solution more and the problem that you're really engaging with than the technology that you're building.
But looking from the US perspective, you're saying that, hey, you have 70 entities like DIU basically tackling or trying to tackle the same thing. Looking from the European perspective, actually, I think DIU is a good example. And in Europe, we don't have similar institutions in every single nation to actually advocate for startups in order to have the procurement done, any kind of commitment from the governmental sector. So from my end, we can produce more dual-use startups, but in the end, they definitely have to have a real customer as well. And it's a maze. Defense is a total maze, and it's super easy to get lost in the maze. So I think that it's super valuable what you're doing.
And we have a lot of European governments and industry groups come through and say, what is DIU's special sauce? What is the value add that you provide? How can we replicate that in our geography? So a lot of people are asking, how do you do it, and can we do something similar for ourselves?
Thank you. Let's continue on Denny's side. So why is it so important for defense startups to be dual use? And as everything is now starting here in Finland, I would say, so your experience from North Carolina, so journey of a dual use startup in the US from inception to a large company.
Well, I think there's 2 basic reasons. The first one is to get venture capital or to get angel investors in the United States. Very few will invest in simply a DoD solution. Dual-use solutions are much more profitable and less risk to an investor than simply a DoD solution or Department of Defense solution. The second thing is, in the United States, the Department of Defense has identified 14 technology areas that they're interested in. 11 of those 14 they recognize are all in the commercial space for dual-use technologies. So if you want to play in the United States DoD, having a dual-use technology with also a commercial vent to it is extremely important, because it also reduces risk for the DoD, because they're buying something that they know the commercial sector is probably already tested and they want as well.
That was excellent point, by the way. So whatever is your startup focusing on, so think about now when you are creating a dual use, so then you have like two paths. So if the other one fails, so then you go with the other one. Yeah. So thank you. Katri,
Yeah.
please continue. Perhaps you don't have the examples yet, but something to share with us.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in Europe it's basically the same.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to clarify that dual use is a business strategy. It's not the domain. So defense is domain, something else can be a domain, it's a business strategy. Looking from the investment point of view, it is definitely easier to get investments once you are a dual-use company, and a lot of private capital venture firms will be probably at least considering of investing in your company. On the other hand, actually pulling off the business strategy can be twice as hard as well. So it's not only honey and sweets out there once you're building a dual-use company, because you have to master the commercial lane and you have to master the defense lane as well. And those two tend to be totally different. The sales cycles are different, the procurement cycles are different, everything basically is different. So you basically have to equip yourself with kind of two teams within a one team. So I think that probably it is more pulled off in a way that you can be a dual-use company up to some point, and then you have to make up your mind. For some of the companies, this is definitely the case. So whether you are actually succeeding on the commercial or on the defense domain.
Thank you. Scott had something, and then Torsten. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the first questions we ask when we're running our vendor selection process is, what commercial clients do you already have? We're looking for companies that are where market forces have already forced them to produce a solution that we want to take advantage of. We do not fund fresh development of new solutions. We're looking to draft off of and take advantage of companies where market forces have already encouraged them to produce a solution. So that's our first question. Do you already have commercial clients? And what track record do you already have in the commercial space that we can take advantage of?
Yeah. For us, it's actually more nuanced. Number one, we all would love to see a lot of government startups, but the fact is the money isn't there for it. We need co-investors, and even with $1 billion fund, of course, we need co-investors. And the co-investors will not overnight turn from commercial venture capital into government. So there needs to be a transition phase. The easiest transition phase is to say, hey, you have commercial applications that are really well suited for a lot of the government problems. Why not do that here too? That's how you make people comfortable in that space, because in the end, there's money behind the money. Every VC fund that you have has LPs, and the LPs, limited partners, are the money behind the money. And they say, I'm underwriting a certain risk strategy, and government scares me. It seems to be big and cumbersome, right? So it's our job to make the whole capital community feel comfortable with dual use. The second part is, over the last 20 years, we looked into 423 solutions that were built by prime companies, the defense contractors, and systems integrators for the 24 nations that are part of our fund. All of them said, we do a multi-vendor strategy. None of them have ever replaced a single vendor. That means you have stovepipe solutions that are purpose-built for one country with zero innovation. Of course, the primes would debate that, and system integrators would debate that, but not at the speed of startups. What dual use brings into the market is you have an 80% base of constant innovation through commercial engagements, through actual customer interactions, through people who are saying this doesn't work and that doesn't work, and we need to change this paradigm. And by the way, 2 years down the road, we have this new AI API that we'd like to integrate, and that's really important to us. How do we do this safely and securely? How do we make sure that no data is lost in attack and breaches, right? You have that constant innovation on the commercial side that now can trickle into government. And that's the other important factor of that. Venture capital only makes money once, when we sell your company, either to the public market or to an acquirer. That means in both cases, that product might cease to exist, because maybe a Cisco or whoever buys you might say, you know, thanks for the people, but we're done here and I'm going to use the people for something else. And that means that by definition, governments are forced to do a much stronger multi-vendor strategy, to have exchangeable large ecosystems, and that will create enormous resilience against external threats. And that's for us the biggest advantage of dual use.
And this is actually the precise reason why NATO built Diana as well. So we are actively scouting actually from the civilian sector. So even though then we have the NATO acronym in the name, we are not precisely scouting for defense-only startups, more scouting differently from the civilian startup ecosystems in order to actually explain the defense side to those startups, build different kind of bridges between the investor community, between the end user community, to actually teach them how to make wise decisions in that domain as well.
Excellent addition. So then financial institution after financial institution is announcing at the moment that they are also now shifting on dual use, and as I was speaking with you, Torsten, that okay, also yesterday NIP was announcing here in Helsinki that okay, now dual use investments are also possible for them. So now question for you is, as you already pointed out, the C in this VC. So in your view, what are investors in dual use or defense startups most often looking for?
Yeah, so in venture capital, be very careful when you hear what are most investors looking for, because 70% of all VCs lose money, right? So you should look at the top quartile. What are they looking for? What are the best ones looking for? And the biggest problem that we see in the market is that you have phenomenal technologies. And remember, we are deep tech investors. We're not just doing AI, but we're doing breakthrough scientific discovery in AI. We're not just doing cybersecurity, but breakthrough scientific discovery in cybersecurity. So it's a very subsector of the whole dual use space, right? And in that sector, too many people come with great technology and not good enough teams. You need to understand that in order to raise money, you need to hit a milestone that other investors will say, wow, they achieved that. I need to invest in those guys. That's going to be a rocket ship. No one is going to get inspired by the 100 million sideways sale to a corporate. What we need to do, we need to build the startups that become the lighthouses of Europe, where people say, I want to be the next UiPath, I want to be the next ICE, I want to be the next XYZ, right? That's what's inspiring people, and that's what builds capacity. And so investors need to see that opportunity, because it's called venture capital. It's not a municipality bond. It's not a business grant. There are many other funding areas that you can go to, and you should take advantage. When you go in with investors that provide you venture capital, you need to be pretty sure that closes a lot of doors, actually, right? You need to be hypergrowth capable. And hypergrowth means team management more than technology management. And we're happy to help and make introductions and provide mentors and provide feedback on pitches, provide direct access to capital community. Diana is actually really great of attracting a lot of VCs who then give feedback to pitches. That helps make this product that you're selling more resilient. You have
and get them through those particular stages. So I'd like to make sure that you all are aware of that. And for those companies that don't have a product, that aren't ready for VC, that can't go to DIU with the TRL level 7 to 10, and they're still working your product, there are other avenues out there, and that's something that the innovation ecosystem, I'm sure ARCTIC15 can help you with. But I think it's important to at least address that for folks in the audience that aren't at the VC stage yet.
yeah.
And on the European scale, the EDF is providing a lot of non-dilutive funding as well. So if you're not familiar with the opportunities out there, then once building a dual-use company, definitely go and browse their webpage.
Yeah, we're actually amazed how every single country that we visit has a really, really active funding program for all sorts of business initiatives in dual use. So that ranges from Turkey and Greece, Spain, Italy, to Finland and Norway and Denmark, with great innovation centers. And like you said, sometimes you have these great products, and you're gonna, out of Diana, there are sometimes phenomenal products, and they're gonna have like 20, 30, 40 million of revenue for 4 or 5 years at least. And by the way, if you just get a bank loan, no one sits on your board and says, this button should be green and not red, or what is your churn rate here? You're your own manager, and you own 90% of the business probably, right? And so once you sell that, that's a tremendous stepping stone maybe into the next generation of problems that you might not get when you take venture capital. So think very long and hard about it, to your point.
Excellent. So then, Katri, you have already given good advices, but what advice would you give to a founder with the civilian market startup who is considering entry into defense?
To get familiar with the difficulties, so to say, basically, yes, it is difficult, but for the years to come, a huge potential lies within. So the situation for dual-use or defense tech companies, I would dare to say, has never been that good, basically, because due to the reasons that governments are very much changing their mindset on the procurement level, on the European level as well, similar institutions as DIU are being built as we speak, so it spreads in a most positive way. The capital community, it's a totally different ecosystem comparing, I don't know, 3 years back even. So there's money, both non-dilutive from the EDF as well as from the US sources, so there is huge amounts of money out there to actually build your products up to the scale where VCs are willing to back you up as well. So, but you still have to, I totally agree what you said previously, do your homework. Do actually go out there. If you're building amazing tech company, which, I don't know, generates revenues on the commercial lane already, try to do at least some kind of validation with the defense end users. So, and this is very much the thing that we are providing through Diana as well. But out of the 1,300 teams that have applied last year, we were able to only accept 44 companies. So a massive drop-off. So all the other companies out there, try to do a basic validation beforehand to actually understand the customer and their specific needs. And then I think that you are ready to tackle the challenges and whether Diana could be a perfect fit for you or some national program. A lot of national programs are being built as we speak as well. So there are different opportunities out there and several ones to come as well.
Excellent.
I think one important thing is perhaps to say is, as VCs and as founders, you should have an exponential mindset, especially in venture capital. And that means whatever you do should serve at least two purposes that are either parallel or at least orthogonal to each other. And what that means is when, for example, you say, oh, maybe I can go to a business accelerator. Forget about dual use or government right now. You should understand what is it that you want to get out of that accelerator. Is it access to capital, access to workforce, access to learning about how to build a company, access to mechanics? What is it? The same thing is true. You can like come to all four of us and start a conversation. Why? Why do you come to us? What is the goal you're solving? And let's say that fails. Let's say you can't engage with us. What did you learn that's relevant for your dual-use commercial application? Meaning, you engage with Scott. Scott runs you through the Pentagon. And Pentagon says, here are all the problems with integration software that you would need to solve. Hallelujah, you just learned something. And if anyone comes back to you, oh, I heard you're, talk to Scott about the Pentagon. What are you doing with them? It's a bad idea if you would say, oh, nothing, they failed and we disengaged, right? You could say, they ran us through the ringer, and if you have any question about security, talk to Scott if that worked for Pentagon. And that's going to be amazing. So you don't even need a contract at the end. You can leverage many other things you learn in these programs. And that's what you need to understand is what is it you want to get out of us? If you don't know that, you're just going to waste a lot of time and a lot of cycles.
But if you are a startup that's in the commercial space and you think there is dual use for your product, have someone assess it, like we're all saying. Have someone look at it and assess it for its applicability to defense purposes. We work, like Denny was saying, at Core DIU, we work a lot with high TRL, 7, 8, 9, commercial products that are already out there. We also, though, work with much earlier stage startups, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have a sister organization called NSIN, N-S-I-N, National Security Innovation Network, that provides an on-ramp for startups that are at a much earlier stage. You're not ready for commercial yet, but you think there might be applicability of your solution to the defense space. We will help work with you on that and provide an on-ramp for you even in that early stage.
But defense definitely is for more patient founders, I would say. Because if you would like to build a unicorn type of SaaS company with an exit within 5 or 7 years, this is not the case. It takes more time because, as was mentioned earlier several times already, so it is difficult to get in, but once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
So out of the 5 primes, none of them were ditched like ever. So basically, yes, it takes more time, but it's very rewarding as well.
Yeah.
Denny, any?
I would tell you, it's very reassuring to see so many people out here that are interested in defense. But you need to know, especially if you're going to work in the U.S. Defense Department market, it's not easy. It takes time. It's much quicker to get a commercial sale than to get a contract with the Department of Defense in the United States. However, like you said, once you're in, you're in. And typically, if you perform, you're going to continue to do well within that government. But the bottom line is focus on the problem to get started. And that means part of your homework is networking and getting out and talking to other people, these government folks that are up here on stage, to really understand what they're looking for. Because just reading it isn't enough. Until you talk to somebody and really understand what they need, it's difficult to put a good, compelling submission or proposal in. So get around like you're doing today, make this happen. And to me, it's so reassuring because 80 years ago today was the invasion of D-Day. And if you look back at the technologies we had then versus what's happening today, and the technologies we even see in the Ukraine with what's happening, future warfare is going to depend on a lot of you in this audience providing the war fighters what they need to be able to fight, win, and survive.
But
so my hat's off to you.
But in order not to have only a negative note on long cycles and it takes a lot of time and stuff, it gets better because the development cycles in Ukraine takes like 6 weeks nowadays, not like months or years. They don't have that time. So we are already facing the fact that the procurement cycles are getting faster as well. So the investment onboarding gets faster. So there are a lot of positive changes as well. So yes, it takes time, but nowadays it takes already a bit of less time than a year ago.
Yeah, the same is true for resilience and security, and food security and climate security with the gas shortage and the change in energy. I mean, the amount of innovation that governments are suddenly like changing the way how they look at heat exchange, heat pumps, all sorts of novel ideas for dams, for bridge building, for communication, deep sea tracking of fish and different sequestering of carbon. That suddenly like came into being, I want to say, in the last 4 years, seemingly out of nowhere, but with a 20-year working cycle. And then there was a forcing event. And that's, as VCs, the thing we plan for are the black swan events, right? The things we couldn't foresee, right? That we didn't know what happened. That's what we need to plan for, to be ready to act and pounce fast.
And as one more bit of evidence about how quickly we want this to go, when DIU does a public solicitation of what we are looking for, you have 2 weeks, 10 business days to respond. You can supply 5 written pages or 15 slides. That's it. But if you survive the competition and are awarded a prototype contract, you can be under prototype contract with DIU in 90 days. So that's evidence of how quickly we want this to go. That's the urgency that's behind what we're all here to talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
Think about that. Your product is out in 90 days, delivered to the market. So not necessarily so much patience needed, but of course, patience is needed, but not a problem for us Finns as we have sisu. But summing up this exciting discussion, so first of all, I would say that after all, I think most of the audience or people out there, they think that it's totally different as we are speaking about defense or dual use. But in a matter of fact, it's not so different. There is huge opportunities. The development cycles are getting faster and faster. Everybody is interested to invest into your company if it's dual use. And very good point from Katri is validation with end users, and this is exactly what we are building and providing for you startups in a short notice in Riihimäki. Validation with real need, that is what we do. Okay, so that's if panelists, if you want to say last words, we have something like 25 seconds left.
I said it all.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for having me on this panel and giving me the opportunity to walk around and meet your innovation ecosystem. If North Carolina can ever help, or maybe we can team and get together on some of this, we certainly would welcome that.
And for all of the dual-use founders out there, so dare to knock on the door of dual-use, and Diane as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you, audience.
Okay, thank you.
Go this way?
I guess so.